The Adrianna Younge case has shocked communities worldwide. What happens when an 11-year-old girl vanishes during a family outing, only to be found deceased 20 hours later in the very same swimming pool that was repeatedly searched? This Guyana swimming pool tragedy has raised serious questions about police procedures and potential cover-ups. With protests spreading across multiple continents and an international outcry demanding answers, this is no fantasy. This is the heartbreaking story that has ignited global concern and raised questions about justice in Guyana. One might wonder if this tragedy could have been prevented. The truth is stranger than any screenplay. In reality, this is the distressing, concerning situation surrounding what happened to Adrianna Younge, a case that has thousands seeking answers across continents. On April 23, 2025, what should have been a day of joy and family bonding at the Doubleday International Hotel in Tucson, Guyana, unfortunately transformed into a situation that would spark concern across an entire country and beyond. Adrianna Younge, just 11 years old, visited the hotel's swimming pool with her grandmother and relatives. After purchasing pool access, she was last seen near the water shortly after 1:10 p.m. 2 hours passed. Adrianna was nowhere to be found. By 3:30 p.m., her worried family called the Tucson police station, urgently seeking help to find their little girl. What followed would raise questions about police procedures, potential inconsistencies, and whether influential individuals might have been involved in shaping the narrative around a child's passing. How would you feel if authorities kept changing their explanation about your missing child? Imagine searching desperately for your child for almost an entire day. Now imagine making the discovery yourself after authorities were unable to do so. This was the devastating reality for Adrianna's father, Subrian Younge. Nearly 20 hours after she was reported missing, on the morning of April 24, Subrian found his daughter in the very same swimming pool that had already been searched multiple times. Her body was discovered floating in the water, with visible marks on her face and limbs, raising questions about whether there might be more to the story than an accidental drowning. The discovery occurred during an ongoing protest, as community members had gathered to advocate for more thorough investigation efforts. This raises several questions. How could this happen? How could a body suddenly appear in a pool that had been examined repeatedly by multiple people? Even more concerning was the Guyana Police Force's initial statement, which claimed Adrianna had left the hotel in a red and black Toyota Ram heading toward Vredenhoop. This statement was later withdrawn, with authorities acknowledging they had made a significant error. Consider this for a moment. While a family desperately searched for their daughter, police were directing them to look for a car that apparently never existed. What we want? Justice. Justice for whom? Adrianna. This call would soon resonate across neighborhoods, cities, and eventually, across oceans. Interestingly, the Doubleday Hotel had experienced another incident previously. In what appears to be a parallel situation that few are discussing, a young man named Sadiq Juman was found deceased under circumstances that raised questions in the very same pool back in 2012. His examination suggested trauma and possible altercation, similar to the marks observed on young Adrianna's body. The connection continues. Bojnarine Bola, the proprietor of the Doubleday Hotel, had previously faced charges related to Juman's case in that identical swimming pool. Though he was ultimately acquitted in 2017 due to what was deemed insufficient evidence, the pattern deserves consideration. Multiple sources suggest that Bola and his family may have been associated with questionable activities, including allegations of fraud cases in the United States and Canada. Could this be coincidence? Is it possible that authorities were aware of potential issues and didn't take adequate preventative measures? We don't go pool, we does go river at the back there. I don't know to swim, but the father would take them there and they would go and swim. It had about 5 or 6 persons in the pool that were diving and combing and searching, so she was never in there. These are the emotional words of Adrianna's mother, Amicia Simon, who strongly questions the possibility that her daughter drowned accidentally in that pool. The distress in her voice is evident as she speaks about her child. Adrianna's parents have expressed concerns about the initial autopsy conducted by the government-appointed Barbadian pathologist, Dr. Shubhaker Karapal, which concluded death by drowning. They've requested independent investigation, hiring additional experts to conduct their own examinations. To me, although he is saying he will get justice and whatever, he is not even responding to our request for an independent investigation, Amicia said, referencing President Irfan Ali's statements. The family's concerns appear significant. Through their attorney, they've requested international involvement, specifically asking agencies like the FBI, Scotland Yard, or the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to oversee the inquiry. The family has no confidence in the Guyana police force to carry out an impartial and thorough investigation, their statement indicates. How would you feel having to challenge the very system that's supposed to protect your child? The condition of Adrianna's body prompted immediate questions that merit attention. Her mother noticed something particularly concerning that authorities appear reluctant to address. The question still is, she drowned, where did she drown? Okay, I'm not running away from the fact if they are saying that she drowned, but the question is where did she drown, how, by who? What is the marks on her skin? She continued with growing emotion, when, from the way my child came out of that pool to the point of when I identified the body before they started the post-mortem, you couldn't see those marks, her face got dark, so this could never be from drowning. It's either two things, they either took out the cotton wool at the hospital or it happened at Mr. Ezekiel's parlor because when the body got to Bulwant Singh to do the scan and other stuff, the cotton wool that I saw with my 2 eyes disappeared, Amicia recounted, her voice breaking. What circumstances might explain cotton in the nose of someone who reportedly drowned? And why would potentially important evidence no longer be available? The tragedy has resonated far beyond Guyana's borders, sparking an unprecedented global response. Across New York, Toronto, London, Barbados, Jamaica, Suriname, and beyond, Guyanese communities and their allies have gathered by the hundreds for candlelight vigils, emotional marches, and heartfelt memorial services. In this way, the situation has united people across borders. In Brooklyn, crowds chanted, "Say her name." Adrianna, while proudly holding the golden arrowhead, Guyana's flag, their voices echoing through the streets. Meanwhile in Brixton, London, emotional mourners sang hymns and lit candles that illuminated the night. In Barbados, a solemn book of condolences was opened in Adrianna's memory, filled with messages of support and calls for accountability. At home in Guyana, vigils have spread throughout the country, in Mabaruma, Region 1, Anai, Region 9, New Amsterdam, Linden, Kwakwani, and countless other locations, creating a nationwide expression of grief and unwavering demands for answers. The Guyanese Rights of the Child Commission issued a powerful statement that captured the national sentiment: justice for Adrianna is not negotiable, it is a moral imperative. Have you ever witnessed a single child's passing unite so many people across continents in a call for justice? In response to growing public concern, President Irfan Ali promised full support for an independent inquiry. Assistant Commissioner of Police Khalid Mandal was promptly reassigned from his post as Commander of Regional Police Division 3 and replaced by Assistant Commissioner of Police Mahendra Sinarine. But there's more to consider. Online discussions have raised questions about potential conflicts of interest that, if substantiated, would be significant to this case. Some sources have claimed that hotel owner Bajnarine Bola may be related to President Ali. Could such connections potentially influence why certain aspects of accountability appear to be lacking and why certain evidence might no longer be available? Meanwhile, reports indicate that the hotel's owners have left Guyana amid the growing public response, actions that some view as questionable for individuals with nothing to conceal. Local residents, expressing their frustration at what many perceive as institutional shortcomings, reportedly engaged in protests at the Leonora police station that included damage to the hotel and the owner's residence during a 12-hour demonstration, though these incidents remain officially unconfirmed. When there might be connections between those in positions of authority and those involved in a case, how might this affect the pursuit of truth? The quest for answers continues with increasing determination. Despite the Medical Council of Guyana delaying its decision on whether to grant approval for Trinidadian forensic pathologist Dr. Hubert Daisley to practice in Guyana, Adrianna's resolute family has decided to proceed with a second autopsy in the United States. The family is at the stage where they are not interested in what the government's perception is. They want to know the truth, explained Dr. Dexter Todd, the family's attorney, his voice firm with resolve. According to him, urgent preparations are already underway to transport Adrianna's body to the United States for further examination. If they get the truth, and they are able to say, "Okay, I am satisfied," even if the authorities do not use the information to prosecute or so, we know what to do legally with that. The medical council cited new information that had come to their attention about Dr. Daisley, creating another obstacle in the family's pursuit of answers. But they refused to be deterred. Every delay, every challenge placed in their path only strengthens their determination to seek clarity about what happened. As this deeply affecting case unfolds before our eyes, the questions continue to multiply. How could a body suddenly appear in a pool that had been searched multiple times by several people, including a swimming instructor? Why did the police initially provide information about Adrianna leaving in a car, sending the search in a different direction during critical hours? What might explain the marks on Adrianna's body that her mother insists weren't consistent with drowning? Why was cotton wool found in her nose, and why did it apparently disappear before the autopsy? Could there be any connection between previous incidents at the hotel, including a previous death in the same pool, and this tragedy? Might there be any substance to the discussions about potential connections between the hotel owner and those in positions of influence? And perhaps most importantly, will Adrianna and her family ever receive the answers and accountability they so desperately seek? While funeral arrangements move forward, scheduled for Monday, May 5, 2025, at the Virgin Ogan tarmac, the search for truth persists unabated. Adrianna's aunt, Amika Lewis, has appealed for a peaceful burial, explaining that while some are planning to protest and delay the burial until another post-mortem examination is conducted, we do not agree to or condone this action. We will bury Adrianna in a peaceful manner on Monday. But the call for justice continues, growing more insistent each day across cities, countries, and continents. For young Adrianna Younge, a child whose life ended tragically, and whose passing raises profound questions about protection, accountability, and justice in Guyana. This isn't just a local tragedy. This case has awakened something powerful, uniting a nation and its diaspora in a shared demand that cannot be silenced. Justice for Adrianna. Justice that cannot be negotiated away. Justice that must be served. The question now remains, will those involved ever be held accountable? Or will Adrianna become another case where questions remain unanswered in a system that some believe may protect influential individuals while families continue to search for closure? On the morning of October 5, 2022, the peaceful coastal community of Chatham County, Georgia was stunned by devastating news. 24-year-old Leilani Simon contacted authorities to report her 20-month-old son Quinton missing from their home outside Savannah. According to her initial account, she had last seen her toddler in his playpen around midnight the previous evening. When she awoke around 9 a.m., she claimed to have found the front door of their home open and her son nowhere to be found. The Chatham County Police Department responded immediately, securing the area and beginning a thorough search of the property. The community quickly mobilized as news spread of the missing toddler with bright eyes and an infectious smile. Local volunteers joined law enforcement in searching nearby neighborhoods, wooded areas, and waterways. The FBI's Child Abduction Rapid Deployment (CARD) team arrived to provide specialized resources and expertise, demonstrating the seriousness with which authorities were treating the disappearance. Media outlets broadcast Quinton's image across the nation, and concerned citizens followed developments closely, hoping for the boy's safe return. Simon appeared distressed in early interviews, pleading for information about her son's whereabouts. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly desperate mother's plea lay inconsistencies that investigators would gradually uncover through their meticulous work and attention to detail. From the beginning, aspects of Leilani Simon's account raised concerns among experienced investigators. Detective Marion Lemons noted troubling observations when examining the Simon residence. The detective found that Quinton's playpen contained evidence suggesting he had been unwell prior to his disappearance. Despite Simon's suggestion of a possible abduction, there were no signs of forced entry to the home, an important detail that immediately raised red flags among the investigative team. Corporal Cody Jepson conducted multiple thorough searches of the property but found no indication of Quinton's whereabouts. Body-worn camera footage later presented a trial captured Simon describing the clothing Quinton was reportedly last wearing, a Sesame Street pajama top paired with red or black gym shorts. The first significant breakthrough came through innovative investigative techniques. Detective Kiana Robbins accessed data from the flock camera system, an automated license plate recognition network deployed across Chatham County. The records revealed multiple detections of Simon's vehicle between the late night of October 4 and early morning of October 5, contradicting her initial claim that she had remained at home throughout the night and morning. These digital footprints would prove crucial in establishing a timeline of events that conflicted with Simon's narrative. When questioned by Lieutenant Eugene Foster, Simon initially maintained her story that she had not left the residence. However, as questioning continued, her account changed. She claimed she had driven to a nearby convenience store to purchase medication for tooth pain. This inconsistency represented the first discrepancy in Simon's account, one that would grow as investigators continued their methodical pursuit of the truth. Investigators noted how Simon's story evolved when confronted with evidence, a pattern that would continue throughout the investigation. As the investigation intensified, authorities began piecing together a concerning portrait of life in the Simon household through interviews with neighbors, family members, and acquaintances. What emerged was a home environment marked by instability and concerning dynamics that affected all the children living there. Melanie Bowling, who had lived near Simon, provided testimony about conversations during Simon's pregnancy with Quinton. According to Bowling, Simon had expressed significant reservations about the pregnancy and showed little enthusiasm about becoming a mother again. Bowling recalled multiple instances where Simon had discussed her frustration with parenthood and the challenges of raising Quinton specifically. Particularly concerning was the testimony of Talia McCarta, a local teenager who resided in Simon's neighborhood. Talia recounted instances where she observed Simon handle Quinton inappropriately, resulting in the child falling. In another incident, she observed Simon place the toddler in a potentially dangerous situation near water without proper safety measures. Talia also recalled occasions when Simon would leave the child at Talia's home for extended periods without checking on his well-being. The teenager testified that she often found herself acting as an impromptu caretaker for Quinton, stepping in where Simon's attention appeared to be elsewhere. Talia expressed regret at not reporting these concerning behaviors to authorities earlier. Central to understanding the dynamics of the Simon household was Simon's relationship with her boyfriend, Danny Younge, who lived with her and the children at the time of Quinton's disappearance. Court testimony revealed a relationship marked by arguments, domestic tension, and apparent prioritization of their relationship over the children's well-being. Text messages presented as evidence showed Younge referring to Simon's children in unfavorable terms, suggesting a household where the children were viewed more as burdens than beloved family members. Paul Simon, Leilani's brother, testified about frequent arguments between his sister and Younge, describing a home atmosphere filled with tension. He noted that despite this challenging environment, Quinton seemed to maintain a positive relationship with Younge, demonstrating the resilience often seen in young children. Younge's testimony during the trial proved crucial to the prosecution's case. He admitted that despite living in the home, he did not check on Quinton on the morning Simon reported him missing. This contradicted Simon's claim to investigators that Younge had seen the child that morning, a significant discrepancy that undermined her account of events. FBI agent Bridget Brock specifically testified that Simon had insisted Younge saw Quinton in his crib that morning, while Younge himself could not confirm this, creating a crucial inconsistency in Simon's narrative. Perhaps most revealing was Younge's agreement to participate in a monitored conversation in a hotel room with Simon, suggesting he had come to doubt her version of events and was willing to assist investigators in uncovering the truth. On October 12, 2022, just 1 week after Quinton was reported missing, the Chatham County Police Department made a solemn announcement that fundamentally altered the trajectory of the investigation. They believed something tragic had happened to Quinton Simon, and they identified a family member as the person of interest. The search for a missing child officially transformed into a homicide investigation. This shift came after investigators had gathered substantial evidence casting doubt on Simon's story. Surveillance footage had captured Simon's vehicle stopping at waste disposal containers, locations where authorities would later theorize evidence had been discarded. This directly contradicted her revised claim about visiting a Chevron gas station. Cell phone records played a crucial role in undermining Simon's account. Data showed movement patterns inconsistent with her statements about her whereabouts on the night of October 4 and morning of October 5. Additionally, text messages revealed communications about acquiring certain substances in the days leading up to Quinton's disappearance. While Simon claimed these exchanges were on behalf of a friend, investigators found this explanation unconvincing given the timing and context of the messages. A particularly telling moment emerged during a cigarette break during questioning when Simon made a revelation about her temperament. She admitted to law enforcement that she experienced sudden emotional changes, stating that she could lose control without realizing it. This spontaneous confession about her volatile emotional state would later become significant when prosecutors constructed their case about the circumstances surrounding Quinton's disappearance. Another witness testimony further contradicted Simon's alibi. Simon had claimed to meet someone at a gas station on the morning of Quinton's disappearance to retrieve medication for tooth pain. However, her former co-worker Melissa, Missy, Bray testified that while Simon had mentioned coming to get medication from her, she never actually arrived to collect it, another inconsistency in Simon's increasingly questionable narrative. As investigators built their case, they developed a theory that evidence related to Quinton had been disposed of in a waste container and subsequently transported to a local landfill. This led to one of the most extensive and challenging search operations in the region's history, involving dozens of personnel working in difficult conditions. The search benefited from specialized expertise provided by Team Adam, a group of retired law enforcement volunteers from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. 2 landfill experts from the team analyzed data to identify a specific area in the landfill where evidence was most likely located, significantly narrowing the search parameters. For weeks, the community watched and waited as the difficult search continued. Then, on November 18, 2022, approximately 5 weeks after Quinton was reported missing, investigators made a discovery. Evidence was carefully collected and sent to the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, for analysis. FBI forensic expert Dr. Angie Christensen would later testify that the evidence confirmed it belonged to a child between 1 and 2 years old, consistent with Quinton's age. Most significantly, her analysis indicated concerning circumstances before the tragic outcome, providing crucial scientific evidence that would form an important part of the prosecution's case. On November 21, 2022, police arrested Leilani Simon, charging her in connection with her son's case. In December 2022, a grand jury returned an indictment against Simon containing 19 separate charges. These included serious charges related to the case, including concealing evidence, and multiple counts related to false reports and statements. While prosecutors did not specify exactly what happened to Quinton, likely due to the condition of the evidence, they built a comprehensive case around Simon's deceptive behavior, contradictions in her testimony, and the substantial circumstantial evidence pointing to her involvement. Simon entered a plea of not guilty to all charges, setting the stage for what would become one of the region's most closely watched criminal trials. Medical evidence presented during the trial helped eliminate potential alternative explanations. Dr. Kenneth Birch, a pediatric cardiologist who had previously evaluated Quinton, testified about the child's heart murmur. He stated definitively that the heart condition could not have caused the child's passing, countering any suggestion that Quinton might have experienced natural causes. This testimony was critical in ruling out medical explanations for what happened to Quinton. Dr. Amanda Puentes, who served as Quinton's pediatrician for his last checkups, testified that she had no concerns during her examinations. While this testimony might initially seem to favor the defense, prosecutors used it to establish that Quinton had been a generally healthy child whose life was cut short by non-medical circumstances. The trial of Leilani Simon began in October 2024, nearly 2 years after Quinton's disappearance. Over 9 intense days, prosecutors presented dozens of witnesses and substantial physical and digital evidence to build their case against the defendant. The prosecution's strategy focused on demonstrating a series of inconsistencies in Simon's statements from the earliest moments of the investigation. Assistant District Attorney Tim Dean methodically laid out contradictions in her accounts, physical evidence challenging her claims, and testimony suggesting a troubled relationship with her son that preceded his disappearance. A significant focus was placed on Simon's apparent preoccupation with her relationship with Youngkin and personal matters, rather than the well-being of her children. Testimony suggested that caring for Quinton was viewed as an obligation that interfered with her preferred lifestyle. Prosecutors presented evidence of Simon's frequent complaints about parenting responsibilities and her apparent prioritization of social activities over childcare. The defense, led by attorney Robert Percy, argued that the state's case was built on conjecture rather than concrete evidence. They emphasized that there was no direct proof that Simon had intentionally harmed her son and suggested that what happened to Quinton could have been accidental or caused by someone else. Defense attorney Martin Hilliard specifically pointed to Youngkin's initial statement to police that he had seen Quinton multiple times on the morning of the child's disappearance, though this claim was later contradicted by Youngkin's own trial testimony. The defense team also attempted to cast doubt on the reliability of key witnesses, suggesting that their recollections might have been influenced by media coverage or by a desire to assist law enforcement. They questioned the scientific analysis of evidence recovered from the landfill, suggesting alternative interpretations of the findings. During closing arguments, Assistant District Attorney Jenny Parker emphatically stated that what happened to Quinton was not accidental and that Simon was responsible. The prosecution portrayed a mother who viewed her toddler as an obstacle to her desired lifestyle. Parker methodically reviewed the evidence, asking jurors to consider the totality of the circumstances and the overwhelming evidence of Simon's deception throughout the investigation. After deliberations, the jury returned in October 2024 with their unanimous verdict, guilty on all charges. The verdict represented the culmination of 2 years of investigative work and the community's long quest for justice for Quinton. On November 21, 2024, Leilani Simon appeared before Chatham County Judge Tammy Stokes for sentencing. In a solemn courtroom filled with law enforcement officers who had worked the case, community members who had followed it closely, and media reporting on the conclusion of the tragic saga, Judge Stokes sentenced Simon to life in prison with the possibility of parole, plus an additional 10 years for the other charges. During the sentencing hearing, Judge Stokes noted the profound impact of the case, stating, "The one thing that I will say before pronouncing sentence is clearly little Quinton Simon's life impacted many, many individuals, but also the community at large." Simon stood silently as the sentence was read, offering no statement to the court or to those who had loved Quinton. Defense attorney Martin Hilliard indicated plans to file a motion for a new trial, but legal experts commenting on the case noted the strength of the prosecution's evidence and the comprehensive nature of the guilty verdict on all counts. The case of Quinton Simon stands as a profound tragedy that has left an indelible mark on Chatham County and beyond. For the community members who had participated in searches, held vigils, or followed the case through media reports, the resolution brought a measure of justice but little comfort. Many were left grappling with the reality that the person who had appeared most concerned about finding Quinton was responsible for his fate. The case prompted important conversations about how warning signs might have been missed and what could have been done differently to protect a vulnerable child. Community organizations reported an increase in child welfare reports following the case, suggesting heightened awareness of the importance of reporting concerns. Local schools and community centers implemented new educational programs about recognizing signs that children might be at risk. Law enforcement officials involved in the case described it as one of the most challenging and emotionally difficult investigations of their careers. The dedicated team that conducted the landfill search received special recognition from the community for their persistence in finding evidence under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. Quinton Simon's legacy endures not only as a heartbreaking reminder but also as a catalyst for greater awareness about child welfare and protection. In communities across Georgia and beyond, his name has become associated with the need for vigilance, compassion, and intervention when children may be at risk. Several child advocacy organizations established memorial funds in Quinton's name to support programs aimed at preventing similar tragedies. As the judicial process concluded in November 2024, the words of Judge Stokes resonated with many who had followed the case, "May there be peace," somehow. It was an acknowledgement that while justice had been served in the courtroom, the deeper impact of this tragedy would take much longer to heal. The community continues to remember Quinton through annual vigils and ongoing efforts to strengthen child protection systems. The case of Quinton Simon serves as a solemn reminder of society's responsibility to protect its most vulnerable members, and of the importance of reporting concerns when children appear to be in potentially dangerous situations. The Evelyn Boswell case became an important precedent for analyzing the effectiveness of child protection systems in Tennessee and across the country. The investigation into the 15-month-old girl's disappearance revealed significant deficiencies in communication between various services and family members, requiring systematic analysis to prevent similar situations in the future. It all began in February 2020, when the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office in Tennessee received a concerning report. What was notable was that the report came from Evelyn's grandfather, Tommy Boswell Sr., not her mother, Megan Boswell. Even more concerning was that, according to the grandfather, his granddaughter had not been seen since December 2019, almost 2 months prior to the report. The case quickly attracted national attention, with the investigation characterized by inconsistent statements, numerous complexities, and ultimately, conclusions that left a community in mourning. Evelyn Boswell was born on November 21, 2018, into a family facing significant challenges. Her mother, Megan Boswell, was only 18 years old when she gave birth. Evelyn's father was Ethan Perry, a young man with whom Megan had a complicated relationship. The Boswell family lived in the small town of Blountville in eastern Tennessee, a region with beautiful landscapes but also economic challenges. The family situation was complicated. Megan's parents, Angela Boswell and Tommy Boswell Sr., were divorced, relationships between family members were strained, and disagreements were frequent. According to neighbors and acquaintances, Megan struggled with consistency in her statements. Her life lacked stability. She frequently changed her residence, moving from one relative to another or to different partners. After Evelyn's birth, the situation remained challenging. Megan continued to live an unsettled life, often leaving her daughter in the care of relatives, grandmother Angela or grandfather Tommy. The exact date of Evelyn Boswell's disappearance became one of the many puzzles in this complicated case. According to various testimonies, the girl was last seen between December 10 and 26, 2019. The most concerning aspect of this story is that the official report of her absence came to the police only on February 18, 2020, almost 2 months after the child vanished from sight. The report about Evelyn's disappearance came not from her mother but from her grandfather, Tommy Boswell Sr. According to him, he contacted the Tennessee Department of Children's Services after realizing he hadn't seen his granddaughter for an extended period. The department representatives, in turn, reported this to the Sullivan County Sheriff. Thus began one of the largest search operations in the county's history. The search operation for Evelyn Boswell became one of the largest in Tennessee state history. After the activation of the Amber Alert system on February 19, 2020, an emergency notification system for missing children, law enforcement agencies launched a large-scale operation, involving not only the local Sullivan County Police but also agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, TBI. The search was challenging because almost 2 months had passed since the girl was last seen. This significantly expanded the geographical boundaries of the search and complicated the efforts to locate the child. Additionally, the number of various versions and rumors about Evelyn's possible whereabouts continuously increased, coming both from her mother and from third parties. During the investigation, law enforcement officers questioned dozens of witnesses, including members of the Boswell family, their friends, neighbors, and acquaintances. Particular attention was paid to the testimonies of people who had last seen Evelyn. According to various sources, the last confirmed case of the girl being seen was by one of the family members around December 11, 2019. However, some witnesses claimed to have seen the child later, at the end of December or even in early January. Meanwhile, investigators focused particular attention on Megan Boswell, the mother of the missing child. Her constantly changing versions of events, apparent inconsistencies, and general non-cooperation with law enforcement raised increasing concerns. In an interview with local television channel WCYB, Megan stated, "If I really wanted to run, if I really wanted to get away from my responsibilities, I wouldn't have dressed her, wouldn't have given her medications, wouldn't have done everything that I did for her." This interview made an ambiguous impression on the public and investigators, as Megan appeared too calm for a mother whose child had gone missing. On February 22, 2020, for days after the disappearance was reported, police found Angela Boswell, Megan's mother and Evelyn's grandmother, along with her boyfriend William McLeod in Wilkes County, North Carolina. They were charged with taking a BMW that belonged to Megan without permission. Evelyn was not with them at the time, but this event added another layer of complexity to an already complicated case. On February 25, 2020, Megan Boswell was taken into custody for providing false statements to law enforcement agencies. Sullivan County Sheriff Jeff Cassidy stated that Megan had provided investigators with numerous contradictory testimonies during the investigation of her daughter's disappearance, which significantly complicated the search. Megan's bail was set at $25,000, but even after her arrest, the search for Evelyn continued with undiminished intensity. On March 6, 2020, the investigation into the missing Evelyn Boswell case reached a significant development. On this day, investigators received information that led them to a property on Muddy Creek Road in Blountville, Tennessee, property belonging to Tommy Boswell Sr., the grandfather of the missing girl and father of Megan Boswell. According to Sullivan County Sheriff Jeff Cassidy's statement, investigators made a discovery that confirmed the worst concerns about 15-month-old Evelyn Boswell's situation. The investigation concluded that the child was no longer alive. This discovery brought a solemn conclusion to the search operation that had lasted more than 2 weeks, but it closed the question about the child's whereabouts, leaving open questions about the circumstances of her disappearance and who bears responsibility for it. After the discovery on March 6, 2020, the investigation entered a new phase. Megan Boswell, who was already in custody for providing false statements, became the primary focus. Investigation teams carefully collected evidence, analyzed findings, and reconstructed the chronology of events. On August 5, 2020, 5 months after the discovery, a Sullivan County grand jury indicted Megan Boswell on 19 counts, including serious charges related to her daughter's case, felony offenses, and child endangerment. Additionally, she was charged with child neglect, providing false statements, deliberately destroying evidence, and other offenses. That same day, Megan Boswell was formally arrested on the new charges. She was transferred to increased security at the Sullivan County Jail, where she remained without the right to bail. Sullivan County prosecutors, including District Attorney Barry Staubus, stated they would seek appropriate legal consequences for Megan Boswell. The case caused such a public reaction that prosecutors decided to pursue a serious but measured approach to ensure a fair trial. The trial of Megan Boswell began on February 4, 2025, in Sullivan County Criminal Court, presided over by Judge James Goodwin. The trial attracted enormous attention from the media and the public. The courtroom was filled, and outside, numerous journalists, advocates, and concerned citizens gathered, eager to see justice carried out in this high-profile case. Opening the trial, District Attorney Barry Staubus outlined the prosecution's position. Megan Boswell was responsible for what happened to her daughter Evelyn and then concealed this fact for an extended period, creating false stories about the child's whereabouts. He promised the jury that he would prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Megan was responsible for all charges brought against her. The defense, in turn, insisted on the presumption of innocence and claimed that the state had no direct evidence that Megan was responsible for what happened to Evelyn. Megan's attorneys, including Brad Sproles and Kelly Talbot, argued that the investigation was rushed, focusing on Megan as the only suspect while ignoring other possible scenarios. Prosecutors presented numerous pieces of evidence, including photographs from the investigation, reports, records of Megan's phone conversations and text messages, as well as testimonies from people who had seen Evelyn before her disappearance. An important piece of evidence was also surveillance footage from a store showing Megan purchasing items that were later connected to the case. Particularly moving was the testimony of Tommy Boswell Sr., Evelyn's grandfather, who described how he discovered that his granddaughter was missing. He described how he tried to question Megan about the child's whereabouts but received contradictory answers or no information at all. This moment in the trial evoked strong emotions from those present in the courtroom. Another important aspect of the prosecution's case was evidence indicating that Megan had continued to live a normal life for an extended period, continuing to post photos and videos on social media, going on dates, and socializing, all while knowing what had happened to her daughter. This, according to prosecutors, demonstrated indifference and a lack of concern. During the trial, Megan Boswell chose not to testify on her own behalf, which is her constitutional right. Instead, her attorneys tried to challenge the credibility of prosecution witnesses and point out gaps in the state's evidence. They argued that the lack of direct evidence that Megan was responsible for what happened to her daughter should lead to acquittal. However, despite the defense's efforts, most observers noted that the prosecution presented a compelling case against Megan Boswell. The combination of circumstantial evidence, expert testimony, and Megan's own behavior created a concerning picture that seemed to suggest her involvement. After 2 weeks of intense hearings and presentation of evidence, Megan Boswell's case was given to the jury on February 14, 2025. The jury deliberated for nearly 6 hours before reaching a unanimous decision. They found Megan Boswell responsible on all major counts related to the case. As the judge read the verdict, Megan Boswell remained outwardly composed, though some observers noted that her shoulders trembled slightly. She showed no visible emotional reaction when the verdict was announced. Megan Boswell received a significant sentence for the serious charges. Additionally, she received extra terms for other offenses, including 15 years for aggravated child mistreatment and 8 years for deliberately destroying evidence, which were to be served consecutively after the main sentence. Announcing the sentence, Judge Goodwin expressed his deep concerns about Megan's actions. "You committed a serious offense against an innocent child, your own daughter, and then tried to conceal your actions, misled law enforcement, and gave false information to the public," he said. "This sentence reflects the seriousness of your actions and ensures the protection of society." The case of Evelyn Boswell and the conviction of her mother caused significant public reaction. Many people gathered in Blountville and other cities in eastern Tennessee to honor the memory of the little girl whose life ended so prematurely. Sullivan County Sheriff Jeff Cassidy, at a press conference after the sentencing, stated that while justice had been served, no verdict could bring back Evelyn or heal the wounds caused by this tragedy. "Today, we can only hope that this verdict brings some measure of closure to Evelyn's family and our entire community," he said. "This case reminds us of the importance of child safety awareness and the critical role that communities play in protecting their most vulnerable members. It also highlights the dedication of law enforcement professionals who work tirelessly to bring justice in even the most challenging cases." Analyzing the Evelyn Boswell case, child protection experts identified several key areas for system improvement. 1. Enhanced interagency communication, ensuring rapid information exchange between various government agencies, medical facilities, and schools. 2. Early identification of at-risk families, developing programs to identify families needing support before critical situations arise. 3. Community education, informing neighbors, teachers, and other community members about signs of potential neglect or child abuse. 4. Reporting procedure reforms, simplifying and expediting the process for reporting missing children or potential dangers to children. 5. Psychological support for child protection workers, providing adequate support to reduce emotional burnout among professionals working with difficult cases. Implementing these recommendations can significantly improve the effectiveness of child protection systems and help prevent similar tragedies in the future.
If you enjoy deep dives into true crime, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Until next time, friends!